I'm stepped to the plate, we're swinging for the stars. Every topic covered, it's a game with no bars. From the diamond lights to the field so clean, we hit every pitch, you know what I mean? You hear the crowd roar, it's more than a game. We're diving deep into every name. Welcome to the field, it's a podcast blast. The All Sports Podcast, we're built to last. From baseball legends to the latest score. Tune in, turn up, you'll be craving more.
What's good, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of the MLB segment of the All Sports Podcast. My name's Alejandro Rodriguez, and let's dive on in. Now, last episode, which was our first episode, a lot has happened between then and now. The New York Mets and the Los Angeles Dodgers punched their ticket to the NLCS, while the New York Yankees and the Cleveland Guardians punched their tickets for the ALCS. Now, at the making of this recording, we are going to be ahead of the NLCS Game 3 with the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Mets both tied in the series at 1 apiece. And we're basically just going to be recapping the first 2 games in both series, starting off with the Los Angeles Dodgers completely obliterating the New York Mets in Game 1 in Los Angeles with a final score of 9-0. Now, in this game, I was able to watch most of the games going into today, so I will be just giving my little bit of my thoughts with how the first games went, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper going into Game 2s. If I do sound sick, I do apologize. I did take a lot of medicine just to do this episode, so please bear with me. All right, let's dive in to the Los Angeles Dodgers and New York Mets Game 1. Kodai Senga did take the bump for Game 1 of the NLCS. He did return late in the season after experiencing a right calf injury against the Atlanta Braves. He did go up against Jack Flaherty. And this, a lot of people were under the impression that this matchup was going to be, incredibly down to the wire, especially when it comes to the bullpens. However, it did not look that way. Senga struggled early. For example, in the bottom of the first inning, when the Dodgers were up at bat, Kodai was able to ground out Shohei Ohtani to get the first out. However, he did proceed to walk the next 3 batters, that being Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Teoscar Hernandez. Catcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Will Smith, did get out after a fly out into center field, which ended up bringing up Max Muncy, who in this game was the third baseman. He ended up hitting a line drive into center field, which basically scored in 2 runs in the bottom of the first, basically getting Mookie and Freddie Freeman to score while advancing Teoscar Hernandez to second base. The struggles did continue for Kodai as he proceeded to throw a wild pitch, which eventually advanced Teoscar Hernandez to third base and Max Muncy to second base. That was the end of the bottom of the first. Going into the bottom of the second, Kodai did walk Gavin Lux and then got a sacrifice bunt from Tommy Edman, which did advance Gavin Lux to second base. The next at-bat was at the top of the order for Shohei Ohtani, who ended up singling into right field, which was able to bring in Gavin Lux in for a score. By this point, the Dodgers were already in the lead, 3-0. There was a pitching change. Reed Garrett did eventually replace Kodai Senga, and then proceed to get the final 2 outs of the bottom of the second. Now, unfortunately, the woes did continue for the New York Mets. The Dodgers did end up scoring in the bottom of the 4th as well as the bottom of the 8th to finish out the game 9-0. And, Jack Flaherty basically pitched for 7 innings with no earned runs with an ERA of 2.92, while the Mets pitching staff did struggle. And that was basically the culmination of Game 1 of the NLCS. So now let's move over to Game 1 of the ALCS. The Yankees did win this game 5-2. The pitching matchup was between Carlos Rodon and Alex Cobb. This game was very interesting, to say the least. The Yankees did come out on top first in the bottom of the third when Juan Soto did hit a home run, which gave the Yankees the lead 1-0. They did end up scoring 2 more times in the third and 1 more time in the fourth. The Guardians did come back in the 6th inning after a tremendous pitching output from Carlos Rodon. Brian Rocchio homered in the top of the 6th to bring the score to 1-4 for Cleveland. However, the Yankees did strike back in the 7th inning, and the Guardians did top off their evening with 1 more run in the 8th. Now, the run that was scored in the bottom of the 7th for the New York Yankees was a Giancarlo Stanton home run into left center field, which basically put the Yankees out on top and basically put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, on the Cleveland Guardians to wrap up Game 1. Now, in this game, Carlos Rodon has historically always shown his emotion whenever he has gotten out of a very sticky situation. This game, he did look like a machine, like he did go on to say when talking about the preparation that he took upon himself for this Game 1. He said he emulated his teammate Garrett Cole, who has always kept himself, well preserved, so to speak, in regards of his emotions in order to just get the job done. He did finish out pitching for 6 innings. He did have 1 earned run, but he did finish off the day with a 4.66 ERA. Now, the highlight of this game was the fact that Aaron Judge was walked intentionally in the bottom of the 3rd, which kind of gave him a very, I wouldn't say pissed off notion, but a very, upset feeling toward the other team, because a lot of people have been doing that to him as of late, simply because they all know what the end result would eventually be if it went his way. And this is coming off of Juan Soto hitting his home run that put the Yankees up 1-0. So Judge, I believe, was interviewed after the game, and he was asked about, being walked. And he did say it is a little bit frustrating because, you want to be able to compete, but when you have other players' schemes and workarounds to try to get him either on base by a walk or try to get him swinging, it does kind of frustrate him to a certain point. So that basically wraps up Game 1s of both the NLCS and the ALCS. I will be doing the deep dive into Game 2 for both sides, starting off with the NLCS Game 2 between the New York Mets and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Mets did tie the series 1-1 with a 7-3 victory over the Dodgers. One of the very interesting things that I was hearing the broadcast team for both sides mention was that after the haymaker that the Dodgers gave the Mets in Game 1, the fact that in the top of the 1st inning, Francisco Lindor homered into right field was basically a way of sending another haymaker right back. Now, before I dive a little bit deeper into that, on the bump for both teams, the Mets started Sean Manaea, while the Los Angeles Dodgers started Ryan Brazier. Now, Sean Manaea in the last episode has been absolutely fantastic, since changing his pitching style. He has what's called a cross plate style, where he's now is throwing far left of the pitching mound, especially with the fact that he's a left-handed pitcher. And he showed it today in this game, and it was absolutely fantastic to watch. He did finish off the game with a 2.65 ERA, while Brazier finished out the game with a 5.79 ERA. But let me jump back into what made this game incredibly helpful for the Mets to tie the series 1-1. So like I had mentioned, Francisco Lindor in the top of the 1st did hit a home run into right field that put the Mets up 1-0. with the second inning of this game being where the game basically just blew up wide open. To start off, there were two base runners on base, Starling Marte and Jesse Winker, when Tyrone Taylor, the starting center fielder for the Mets, came up to bat. He did hit a double into left field, which was able to score in Starling Marte and move Jesse Winker over to third. Jose Iglesias did pop out over the second base to get the first out of the inning, which promptly brought up Tyrone Taylor, who was the New York Mets' center fielder, hitting a double, which was a line drive into left field, which made Starling Marte score to put the Mets up 2-0 and moving Jesse Winker to third base. Tyrone Taylor was the man on second base by this time. Francisco Alvarez was the second out of the top of the second inning, and Landon Knack, who had replaced Ryan Brazier in the beginning of the second inning, intentionally walked Francisco Lindor. And later on, when being interviewed about that particular stance, Mark Vientos, who was pitching directly behind Francisco Lindor, proceeded to hit a grand slam, which put the Mets up 6-0. And in that interview, he did say that he did take that personal when they intentionally walked Francisco. Now, the fifth inning was where the Dodgers tried to make a comeback. They did get one run in the bottom of the fifth, which was a home run from Max Muncy. It did bring the score from 6-1. By that point, the inning proceeded to be shut out. However, in the bottom of the sixth inning, Freddie Freeman did reach base on a fielder's choice. Mookie Betts did eventually move to third, with Teoscar Hernandez moving to second. By this point, Phil Maton had replaced Sean Manaea. And Tommy Edman, who was the starting shortstop for the Dodgers, ended up hitting a ground ball into right field, which prompted Teoscar Hernandez to score and Mookie Betts to score, which brought the game to 6-3 in favor of the Mets. And however, the Dodgers did end up having a little bit more of an issue with not being able to get another run in for the rest of the game. The Mets did, however, score another run in the top of the ninth, with Starling Marte getting a single into center field to move Pete Alonso to basically top off the game at 7-3. Basically, it was an extra, you could say, an extra RBI for Starling Marte, who has been looking incredibly good, with playing in his past couple of games, especially with the fact that he was coming off of an injury. And that wraps up Game 2 of the NLCS. The series now had finished out at 1-1 as they enter Game 3, 4, and 5 at Citi Field, which kicks off on Wednesday, October 16th. So now let's talk about Game 2 of the ALCS between the Yankees and the Guardians. Now, I did receive some help when watching this game. I was at work at the time this game was being played, so I did receive some help from my stepdad. Shout out to you, Andy, for helping me out. He was able to watch the game and give a detailed description of how the game went. The Yankees did win this game 6-3. With the Yankees obviously, starting off where they left off in Game 1 by scoring runs in the first, second, sixth, and seventh innings, while the Guardians did score in the fifth and the ninth inning. Now, based off of the notes that my stepdad was able to write down while watching this game, here are a couple of his thoughts. Now, what he did notice is that the starting pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians, I believe it was Tanner Beebe, I'm so sorry. He actually was not really pitching like his normal self in the past couple of starts that he has had. My stepdad was noticing that the Yankees hitters were being very aggressive with him, especially in the first inning, and which eventually ended up hurting him. He did have he didn't really have much help in the defensive area because there was a couple of errors, one from the shortstop dropping a pop fly, which is incredibly serious for infielders, especially with the fact that here you are trying to, get the easiest outs, and a pop fly being lost in the infield is a little unorthodox, especially for a professional baseball player. He also noticed that Tanner Beebe also threw 27 pitches in the first inning, which basically tired him out as he continued forward. Garrett Cole, he did cruise through the first 3 innings as an ace should, coming up with about 14 pitches in total for those 3 innings. Now, Garrett Cole, being the ace for the New York Yankees, has always shown his demand and his command of the batter's box whenever he has pitched. Recently, with a couple of injuries that he has sustained, he has not been able to truly get back to form like that. But including myself, who was able to watch a good portion of the game before leaving work, and also the notes that my stepdad did take, Garrett Cole did show great command of the batter's box. Basically just showed how much of a great pitcher Garrett Cole is. Basically, starting with the second inning, even though he did pitch incredibly well in the first, in the second inning, he did have true command of his four-seam fastballs, which basically were hitting all of their spots that were intended. His changeup and his breaking pitches were also hitting the spots that he has been known for when he has been pitching effectively. Now, in the third inning, Cole was pitching from behind. However, he did have most of the Cleveland batters basically very anxious, chasing pitches that were out of the strike zone. He was able to be incredibly efficient, even though he was behind in the count multiple times. Now, in retrospect, that was just the pitching aspect of the entire game. Well, for Garrett Cole, of course. The dropped pop-out that I had mentioned earlier was hit by Aaron Judge, which was a field error by shortstop Brian Rocchio. Gleyber Torres, who was on base at the time, did come in for a score, and Juan Soto did end up moving to second base. Now, what I have been noticing recently is the fact that whenever the Yankees are playing a team and the team kind of is aware of what is going on, especially with the fact when you are in the situation where you have Juan Soto, preceding Aaron Judge with Gleyber Torres starting off the lineup, the Yankees have seen a lot of success with this start of the batting order, because what you have been noticing is if you have a difficulty getting out Juan Soto, which most of the time he does make it incredibly difficult for pitchers to get him out. He is a fighter in the box. Most pitchers are tired by the time they end up pitching to Aaron Judge, which has almost given Aaron Judge a layup into hitting more home runs this year. So watching this type of lineup, especially for the New York Yankees, play into their favor so much is something that I thought was very interesting, because, the Yankees one of the narratives is that the Yankees are all about power hitting because, of the 1-2 punch of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. But a lot of people don't understand the intricacies of their lineup, because if you truly look in depth of it, you have Gleyber Torres, who's been hitting incredibly well as your leadoff man. He is faster than Soto and Judge, but having someone like that get on base first in the events that he does get on base prior to those two, now you have two batters back to back who are known for their power. And if you can't get past both of them, more than likely you're going to be down 3-0. Now, if you are able to get past one of them, but they're still able to go up in the count or score at 2-0, now you have Giancarlo Stanton, who is batting at, I believe, 5th in the rotation, who, too, has been, since returning from his injury, has been basically a huge factor for the Yankees, especially with the fact that, his home runs as of late have been incredibly clutch for him. And then, obviously, the recently acquired third baseman Jazz Chisholm Jr., even though he has had a little bit of a rocky go-about with the Yankees, in the postseason, of course, is still someone that you two also kind of have to look out for, because he is known for hitting home runs in the most random of moments. And then obviously with Anthony Rizzo, who had missed majority of the year with his own injury, I will go into more detail about his injury at a later date, was able to come back, play first base, and after 4 at-bats, had 2 very solid hits that basically, kept this lead for the Yankees to close out Game 2. Now, basically, the real question now becomes, you're down 2-0 to the Yankees as a Cleveland Guardians fan, but now you're going back to Cleveland for Games 3, 4, and 5. I believe, to my knowledge, at the making of this recording, no decision has been made as to who is going to be pitching in Game 3. I will do my due diligence and check right now. Actually, there has been a decision. Matthew Boyd will take the bump for the Cleveland Guardians. He is a left-handed pitcher. He will be going up against Clark Schmidt in Game 3. And that's going to be very interesting to watch. As of right now, a lot of people are expecting the Yankees to basically finish out this series in Cleveland. However, Cleveland has been known to have the best record at home this year. Obviously, that did attribute to their 90-plus win season. And, who knows? Hopefully the Yankees can come into Cleveland riding the high of winning the first 2 games and hopefully close out the Guardians, within at least 2 out of the 3 games to punch their ticket to the World Series. And it all depends on how well the hitting goes for Cleveland, because, here's a team that has done incredibly well at home and they've struggled in the first 2 games on the road. Now, a lot of eyes will be on them to basically, come back and give the Yankees a haymaker punch, especially with the fact that, their first game in Cleveland will be on October 17th, which is a Thursday. And Game 5 will finish out this Saturday for them. Now, on the NLCS side, Game 3 is going to be a pitching matchup between Walker Buehler for the Los Angeles Dodgers and Luis Severino for the Mets. Buehler has had a little bit of a rocky postseason so far. He is coming into this game with a 10.80 ERA, while Luis Severino is coming in with a 4.50 ERA and 10 strikes so far in his most recent starts. Buehler is coming in with 0 strikeouts. So this is going to be incredibly important for the Mets, because their games for Games 3, 4, and 5 start later on today, October 16th, and it will culminate in on Friday, the 18th, which is going to be incredibly interesting and exciting to watch, because both teams are tied 1 apiece. So now this could be anyone's game. The Dodgers could have the opportunity to take the next 3 games in Citi Field and close out the series and punch their ticket to the World Series. But the Mets also have a home field advantage by taking that game in Game 2 in Los Angeles. They have the ability as well to potentially win these next 3 games starting today and, finishing out the series on Friday. Now, if they are able to do that, they will be punching their ticket to the World Series to face the Yankees if the Yankees end up closing out Cleveland by Friday or even Saturday. Now, I'm a Mets fan, and personally, along with a lot of other friends of mine who are Yankees fans, would love to see a Subway Series World Series. It would be the first time in 24 years that the Mets and the Yankees have faced off in the World Series. However, the Dodgers have been my West Coast team, you could say, even though they are in the National League. So the fact that my two coastal teams are playing each other in the NLCS is incredibly great to watch, especially as a fan. However, I do want the Mets to win. I want the Mets to win it all. But the Mets have a lot of games, to play. They have to come out swinging like they did in Game 2. They got knocked out in Game 1. They got rocked in the mouth. And as we saw from how they responded in Game 2, the Mets are not going to go down without a fight. Now, it's going to be up to the bullpen from what I've been seeing for the past 2 games in regards for the National League. And we're going to see how these managers, Dave Roberts and Carlos Mendoza, work and tweak their bullpen to help them win these games. Now, in regards of the American League, it's incredibly important to understand that even though the Yankees are up 2-0 going into Game 3, they're playing a team who is number 1 in the home record. And, Stephen Vaught has a lot of work to do, especially going up against Aaron Boone and the New York Yankees, because Stephen Vaught now has to work around getting his bullpen right. Because when he played BB in Game 2, the first thing he did when he took out BB was he used his star, relief pitcher, which unorthodoxly, he kind of treated this game like it was a must-needed win game. Because, going back home down 2-0, your back is against the corner, so you kind of want to play your way out. But what tends to happen with teams that do that is they tend to make a lot of mistakes when their back is against the corner or the wall, and that's where the mistakes come in. So now Vaught has to now tweak his bullpen in order to get back into the swing of things that like how Cleveland was working every time they played at home. Now, the last time that the Cleveland Guardians were in the World Series was back in 2016 when they lost to the Chicago Cubs. Now, as of right now, Cleveland has the longest drought of winning a World Series. I believe the last time that they won a World Series was back in 1948, which has put them in a drought for around 76 years. And, that type of record is obviously not something that any team would want. However, with the fact that you're going up against a team who is trying to capture their 28th World Series, it's there's a lot riding on these two series here. The Dodgers have been doing incredibly well. The Mets truly haven't. The last time the Mets were in the World Series was in 2015 against the Kansas City Royals. The Dodgers themselves, even though they've been to the World Series a lot more recently, especially winning in 2020, they want to get back on that pedestal. I believe as of right now, if they were to go on to the World Series and win, they would have their 8th World Series, while, on the American League side, the Yankees are going for number 28. If Cleveland goes on to the World Series and wins, they would have had their third World Series. If the Mets were able to go to the World Series and win, this too would also be their 3rd World Series win. And, there's a lot riding for all 4 of these remaining teams, going into these next 3 games for both sides. This is going to be incredibly interesting and exciting to watch. As a fan, I'm just beyond excited to see where these series go. Tell me what you think in the comments down below and on X. That's MLB on X _. Again, that's MLB on X _. Definitely hit me up with all of your ideas and your thoughts about how these series are going to go. Give me your predictions. I personally have a feeling that with the amount of, hard work that the Mets have been doing this entire year just to get to this point, I do have the Mets coming out on top against the Dodgers to punch their ticket to the World Series. And on the other side of things, for the American League Championship Series, I do have the Yankees closing out the Guardians to set up this Subway Series World Series. And if and when that day comes, I will give my predictions for that. However, you kind of seem to know exactly where my head is at or what I would wish to happen. But that will be a conversation at a later date. Moving forward, I will be throwing episodes almost on a daily basis starting October 17th. I would like to throw an episode out after each game concludes. However, due to the staggering schedule of the NLCS and the ALCS, for example, today, October 16th, the NLCS will start Game 3. On October 17th, which is tomorrow on Thursday, the ALCS will have their Game 3, but the NLCS will have their Game 4. So everything is going to be a little bit staggered. I will do my best to get out an episode almost every day starting October 17th, which is a Thursday. That way we can kind of culminate how every game has gone. And depending on who closes out their series first, I will be finishing out the secondary series that is still going on in order to create a more well-rounded picture heading into the World Series this year. Again, my name is Alejandro. I love talking to you all. Thank you so much. I know this is a little bit late in the season talking about the MLB. A lot of things have happened this year as a whole. The MLB is 100+ games, so talking about everything was a little bit difficult throughout the year, but I'm extremely excited that I get to talk postseason baseball with you all, and I cannot wait to get these episodes going and to see how all 4 of these teams do in their respective series. I will see you all in the next episode. Peace.
We're stepping off the field, but this ain't the end. Join us next time, we'll still be your friend.